Welcome everyone to a video that I've been struggling to make for at least 2 weeks now, since it's such a difficult subject to cover. Finally figured out what exactly I wanted to say, and basically I'm talking about the top tier jets problems, and of course I'll talk about some of the solutions I've come up with. Now let me know what you think about this subject in the comment section below, and by the way, the gameplay in the background is just a mashup of the current game build. I hope you enjoy. So some of you may know that when a missile used to be launched at you, and that's IR guided missiles, so heat-seeking missiles, you used to receive an audible tone and also a visible warning that popped up on your screen. The system wasn't perfect, but it was good enough in my opinion. Now, since changes, this new system, you don't get an audible tone, nor do you get a visible warning that pops up. You now have to be looking at a missile that is highlighted with a red box to be able to know it's coming for you. Now why do I think this is a problem? Realistically, when you're behind an enemy aircraft, in order to kill them, you need to be looking at them. You can't be constantly looking behind you, although any good player should look behind them from time to time. But, as I say, if you're against a manoeuvring aircraft, you simply cannot check behind you. Now this is where the unskilled part comes in. An enemy can easily sneak up on you and fire a missile completely uncontested, since you won't know the missile is coming. Now obviously a way around some of this is that you could be flying with another person, you know, having a wingman being able to spot missiles for you, or equally you spotting missiles for them, but that's not necessarily possible all the time. Now obviously the other option is that you pick your engagements very carefully, but sometimes you are forced into an engagement that you don't want to be in. For example, if you're in a slightly slower jet, you don't have the ability to run away from things. For example, the majority of aircraft can't run away from a MiG-21. For example, even the Phantom, when it's basically empty, can't really run away from a MiG-21, and so you're forced into an engagement. If you are on the offensive, you want to stay on the offensive. So this leads on to the reality side of things, and I'm not going to go too much into depth, but hopefully you guys understand what I mean. Obviously in-game, the majority of aircraft that have missiles have infrared guided missiles. There are a couple of aircraft that carry beam riders, but that's a different subject altogether. In reality, IR missiles are insanely difficult to detect, and that is because of how they work. An IR-guided missile guides itself using passive guidance. This doesn't send any kind of warning to the target aircraft, as a missile will follow simply a heat signature with a computer based inside itself, rather than having a launch aircraft tell it where to go. Other reasons as to why IR missiles are so hard to detect is because their rocket motor will only burn for a few seconds of the flight before it glides to the target. This, coupled with the IR missile usually only having a very small radar cross-section, or RCS, along with moving at speeds in excess of Mach 2. As early as the 1960s, missile detection systems were being developed to try and prevent aircrew losses. The early warning systems were RWRs, or radar warning receivers, which can be seen on the F-4C Phantom, to detect radar-guided threats. Now, although these were helpful, they would only detect radar-guided threats, as I said, but they wouldn't detect infrared-guided missiles. It was determined in the 1970s and 1980s that the majority of downed aircraft were due to MANPADS or other infrared-guided missiles. Now MANPADS are man-portable air defense systems, and that's things like Stingers and Iglas. So man-portable air defense systems, as I say. So aircraft started being fitted with ECM Pods or electronic countermeasures, and this could be to create false heat signatures. It can be used to blind the seeker head of infrared-guided missiles, and aircraft such as the F-4E were mounted with ECM Pods, but in-game, F-4Es obviously don't have ECM pods. They do have flares, which is obviously one countermeasure, but when you take away the other countermeasure, you can see where we start having a problem. Now, most modern fighter jets have a system known as MAWS, or Missile Approach Warning System. Now, helicopters such as the Apache in-game already have this, but the system is designed basically to detect incoming missiles of any kind of variation. That can be from a tow-launched missile, which is a wire-guided missile, or infrared-guided missiles, radar-guided missiles. It detects the launch of a missile depending on the system that is being used. MAWS comes in three main types. You've got the pulse Doppler, which detects the missile itself using radar, but obviously you need to have a large enough radar cross-section for it to be detected. You have infrared that detects the missile itself, but it relies on the missile being warmer than the surrounding area. And then you have the ultraviolet version, which is essentially it detects the rocket motor firing, but obviously if the rocket motor has already shut off by the time the missile is about to reach its target, it can't be detected. All of these systems have their advantages and disadvantages, and obviously because of their disadvantages, most aircraft have a mix of one or two or maybe even three of these systems on board. Now it depends on the country, it depends on the manufacturer of the aircraft, it depends on the system, but generally speaking, if you can combine two of these systems together, the aircraft will generally survive a lot more than an aircraft that only has one of these systems, because it takes away some of the limitations. Now in the grand scheme of things, missile detection systems are very, very, very new technologies, especially ones that work the way they do now. So back in the 1970s and 80s, when they were first introduced and when they were first being tested, they could only just detect that a missile was incoming, but they couldn't give you any reliable data. It was essentially saying, hey, there's a missile coming your way, so you need to do something about it. Nowadays, you have missile systems that essentially will tell you the exact type of missile that is coming for you, whether it's an infrared guided missile, whether it's an RPG, and the aircraft will automatically deal with that situation how it needs to, whether it blinds the missile's guidance system, whether it deploys countermeasures, it will do it all itself. So this is only in the last 20 years where it's become significantly better than it was in the 1970s and 80s. So that leads us back to how it fares in game and its implementation in game. So as most of you know, I like realism. I like WarThunder's implementation of realism in the game and the mechanics, and for the first time ever, I think that there's too much realism being added at the wrong time. With the current game aircraft like the F-4E not having systems like ECM, it does make it near impossible to do anything against missiles. Although the F-4E has flares, like I've said before, the missiles in game are so advanced that almost 70 to 80% of missiles fired at you will ignore flares and hit you anyway. Now that's only to say that you've actually realised that a missile has been fired at you, that you actually have the ability to deploy flares. So most jets at top tier don't have automatic countermeasures, you have to manually deploy countermeasures. And you see the issue with that is that if you don't know the missile's coming, there's nothing you can do about it. And I appreciate, like I said earlier, that you can and should look behind you, and you can and should fly with other people, but it's not always possible. Like you'll see in this clip here, I'm chasing down an aircraft, and yes, I should kind of look behind myself a little bit more than I do, but the majority of these deaths in these clips, I die from a missile that I have no idea is coming, because I'm in the middle of doing something, or I'm engaged with someone, you know? And that's where the issue comes, in my personal opinion. Now, that's not to say that this whole system is unrealistic, because it's not. Like I've already mentioned before, the way missiles work and the way missile detection works in reality, it makes sense in that way. However, I feel like because aircraft don't have ECM pods and they don't have any means of using electronic countermeasures, it makes it a lot less skill-based and a lot more luck-based. So the majority of my kills in these clips are because of luck. They're not necessarily because of skill, because I am not the most skilled player ever. Before this update came out, I was getting maybe 1 or 2 kills a game. And a lot of these games I played, I mean, I don't know if I recorded all of them, because I can't remember, but like there, just in that clip, I got hit by a missile I had absolutely zero warning was coming. But since this new update, I'm getting 3, 4, 5 kills a game sometimes, and that's just not how top tier jets should be. You shouldn't have players who, like, I haven't played top tier jets for maybe 3 or 4 months, and I'm playing top tier jets frequently now because I'm getting so many kills, and it's not difficult. It's so easy to catch people off guard now, and I know that these people that I'm playing against are skilled players, because a lot of them are flying aircraft that are not premium aircraft. They've worked their way to where they're at, or at least I would assume they have, considering the people that I have checked have been like level 100s, and that's just, you know, that's not how this should work. You know, you should be based around skill. Like, before the update for the new missile system, the majority of kills in top tier were with guns, and of course you'd get the odd missile kill here and there where you caught players off guard and when they didn't have time, when the old system didn't quite detect the missile until it was too late. But now it's just every single death is pretty much a missile kill. I mean, there are obviously exceptions to the rule, but the majority of the deaths that I see in game are because of missiles and not because of guns. So that takes away the skill aspect. And especially when you have missiles now that can easily pull 30G in a turn, you know, there's no aircraft that can pull a 30G turn and escape a missile. And then when they're so advanced that they can detect the difference between flares and your engines, even when you're not in a burner, you know, it's like, there's nothing you can do about it, and that's where the problem is. So personally, here are my solutions. So I suggest changing the IR missile detection back to the old system when you get at the very least an audible warning, and that way you can remain offensive on an enemy aircraft without having to be totally exposed from an enemy sneaking up on you. This, in my opinion, should add back the skilled gameplay rather than just the pure luck gameplay. Now, obviously, like I've said, I don't hate the new system. I just think that it has been implemented at the wrong time. I think that they should personally just revert back to the old system until ECM pods and MORs come to fast jets, giving pilots who have, you know, enough skill to be able to get to top tier, that it gives them a better chance of getting kills and victories in game. And obviously, it's more of an incentive to get better at the game rather than just click and shoot like the majority of top tier jets is at the moment. Now, overall, guys, this is just my personal opinion. As you all know, I'm no game developer. I'm certainly not an expert in this whole subject. I'm not an expert at this game. I am just a player, and this is just my opinion. So some of you will agree, some of you will disagree with me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like these types of videos, I mean, you guys seem to really like my helicopter problems and solutions videos, so obviously if I find more problems with WarThunder, I will happily make more videos on them. But as I say, this is just something that's been annoying me because I used to enjoy top tier jets a lot. I used to play a lot of top tier jets, And now with this new system, it's kind of like it's a bit broken in my opinion, and it's not quite what I want, and it's not really what I enjoy anymore. And I mean, as I say, I'm not trying to tell Gaijin how to play their game, or sorry, how to build their game. I'm just a player giving my opinion. Now, obviously, like I said, if you did like the video, please leave me a like. And if you're new here and you like the content I've been producing, then please feel free to subscribe, as it does help me out a lot. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.